Well, hello everyone, welcome to another Life in Student Ministry video post. My name is Tim Schmoyer, and I'm hanging out with a guy here, as you can see right there. His name is Mark Riddle, and he just recently wrote a book called Inside the Mind of Youth Pastors. And I've read this book, Mark, and I just think it's amazing. It's phenomenal. I've recommended it to a bunch of people already, both youth pastors who are kind of transitioning between ministries and churches who are looking for youth pastors. Could you just share a little bit what the book is about? First of all, just kind of summarize it.
Yeah, the book is kind of divided into two parts. The first part is it's about staffing youth ministry. The second part is about relationships with youth pastors. But the bulk of the book is written to church leaders, helping them understand youth ministry and helping them take ownership of helping their church families be more healthy in doing.
So you said it's kind of like helping youth ministries and churches understand their church staffing. What are some of the issues that you've been seeing kind of come out lately that kind of prompted you to write this book, and some of the things that you felt like really needed to be addressed that you were seeing that just weren't working in churches or were not healthy, or what?
Yeah, no, I found that I've been doing youth ministry for 15 years or so. I was doing a lot of conferences and going to a lot of conventions. I was speaking at some and just attending others, and I was finding that there's a lot of youth pastors and a lot of seminars that talked a lot about doing youth ministry differently, or seeing that there were some things that needed to happen in youth ministry that weren't happening. And a lot of the reasons is that there was a certain amount of authority it takes to do ministry in the ways that these youth pastors were dreaming about. That ministry, the way we'd done it in the past, wasn't working as well as we were hoping for. And so there were these changes that needed to happen, and a lot of topics and seminars and things at conventions, maybe 80 or 90% of them, couldn't actually be done in a local church, though, because the church leadership wasn't on board with what was happening, and they weren't even a part of the conversation. And a lot of the youth pastors that I was talking to and coaching at the time didn't know the best possible way, or needed a vehicle by which to have conversations about why we do youth ministry, what's the role of a pastor, what's the role of a youth pastor, what's the role of the people of the church in doing youth ministry. So that's the nutshell. So
what is the role? And I agree completely, and I think it's phenomenal what you've written in this book. But what is that role that you've seen? What it presently is for a youth pastor, and what do you think that role needs to become for a youth pastor working in a healthy, growing church?
Yeah, I mean, I talk about two different kinds of churches. I talk about Church A, and I talk about a church called Church B.
Right.
Church A says the primary responsibility for spiritual formation of teens belongs to the youth pastor. We hire someone to do this on our behalf. Now, most churches don't talk about it in those ways, but it's still 90 or so % of the churches in North America anyway function as if the primary spiritual formation of teens rests on the shoulders of a staff person. That's Church A, okay? Yeah. Church B says the responsibility for the spiritual formation of teenagers rests on the shoulders of parents and the congregation. And it's not just their own kids, but it's their kids' friends. It's their community. And it's in those moments, these divine, holy moments, take off your shoes in church kind of moments where so many churches do, where they have a baby that comes up, and some parents are holding this baby, and they say, we want to raise this child in the way of Christ. And the congregation has this moment where they say, and we are with you, we want to help you do this.
Yeah.
But in the average church, what happens is they walk off the stage and they go down the hall and they send them in the nursery. Church B is saying, we want to own the faith of our kids, and then they may hire a youth pastor, but the role of that person is radically different, and it's based on who the congregation is, what the needs are, and based on what the job responsibilities are tailored to the church and to this person that they hire. So
yeah, so it's like you're moving from expecting the youth pastor to do all the work of the ministry for you, to the youth pastor becoming the one who trains and equips the parents and the rest of the congregation to do the work of the ministry. Is that kind of a little bit about what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, Church A would use language like train and equip. They would use some of those kind of language, but it's really functionally where does the buck stop? And so in a lot of churches, obviously in Church A, the hub of the youth ministry world, or if you were to think of it as a wagon wheel, revolves around the youth pastor or the staff person. Right. And every relationship or new idea or ministry program revolves around this individual. And in a lot of ways, these churches are there's a transaction that happens there. The parents show up and say, we're going to let you take care of the responsibility of forming our kids. And they may not say it in those ways, but they give that responsibility to the staff. Yeah. The staff gladly take it in a lot of ways. So as much as they complain about parents taking responsibility, and giving it to them, the youth pastors often take it, or at least functionally take it.
Yeah.
And then what it gives is a permission for the parent to blame the youth pastor when things aren't going right. So we're going to go someplace where this church meets our needs a little bit better, or they have a better youth ministry, or whatever. It's a characteristic of a humoristic transaction that's happened.
So how do we help? Like, how do we start making that transition? Because I would really like my youth ministry to be characterized by one that is supporting and helping parents take and even the rest of the congregation take that role in training and bringing up kids together. So how do we help shift? That's a huge paradigm shift, and totally, I think it's one that's got to shift. But how do we even start that? Because most of the time, like you're saying, is that we're hired to do this job, and how do we help people see that I am hired to help you do a job instead?
Sure. Well, Tim, the first step is obviously go out and buy Inside the Mind of Youth Pastors.
Right.
And get multiple copies, actually. And I say that kind of joking, but in a way, I wrote the book so that the conversation can happen. The book, every chapter has a dialogue or some questions to start a conversation. Mm-hmm. You can't do this, again, in a youth ministry without the blessing and understanding of the church and the leadership, decision makers, the people with authority in your church to do this. So the first thing has to be a period of time in which you are having rich, deep, comprehensive conversations with leaders in your church so that you are a different people. You understand the role of pastor or youth pastor in a different way. It can't be a couple 30-minute conversations. This has got to be like...
Yeah, coming from like the inside out, coming from, it's got to start with the congregation and people working together. I'm, working from there. Well, thanks for hanging out with me, Mark. And if you guys pick up this book, I highly recommend it, Inside the Mind of Youth Pastors by Mark Riddle. And thanks again, Mark, for your time and your advice. And if people want to get in touch with you for more information, where would they go?
You can email me at mark@theriddlegroup.com, or you can go to markriddle.net, and that's kind of the hub of all.
Cool. Sounds good. Well, thanks again, Mark, and thanks you guys for joining us for another Life in Student Ministry video post, and we'll talk to you later. See you. Bye.